She wanted to shine more than anyone else, ready to do anything to be the most beautiful. But what she didn't know was that this dress was going to cost her her life. In a small animated town where the streets were filled with laughter, clapping and the smell of spices, lived a young woman named Nalaya. Those who knew her often said that she had been made to be looked at. She had a skin of a luminous brim, always sparkling, as if the sun had given her a caress every morning. Her lips smiled gently, and her thin and elegant hips seemed to dance even when she walked slowly. But if Nalaya attracted attention, it was not only because of her beauty. What made her really famous throughout the neighborhood was her obsession with fashion and food. For Nalaya, fashion was not just a pleasure, it was a mission, a reason to breathe. As soon as she opened her eyes in the morning, her fingers slipped mechanically on her phone to plunge into the pages of online shops, designers, and dress sellers that she knew by heart. She did not walk on the podiums, but in her head, every street was a bridge. Every look on her was a silent ovation. Any dress that made her heart beat became an obsession. She didn't sleep as long as she hadn't ordered it. If a seller posted a dress at 11 p.m., Nalaya was always the first to write, "How many, please?" And the next morning, her transfer was already done. But fashion was only half of her kingdom. The other half was food. Nalaya ate as if every meal was a party. She always had something to nibble between her fingers: biscuits, grilled peanuts, chocolate, chips, fried plantains. And the evening came, she never missed her ritual: shawarma or suya. It was her way of ending the day in beauty. Her friends often teased her. Nalaya without food is like a moon without light. And she laughed, taking out of her bag a packet of biscuits to quietly silence them. What surprised everyone was that despite her limitless appetite, Nalaya kept an almost unreal figure. Thin waist, flat belly, well-drawn curves. Many admired her. Others murmured in her back, "How can she eat like that and stay so beautiful?" But if there was one person who never laughed at all of this, it was Mama Ru, her mother. A gentle but firm woman, she watched her daughter with a silent concern. "Nalaya, you can't keep eating like that every day," she often told her. "Mama, forget it. Look at me, I'm perfect," Nalaya answered with a laugh, biting into a skewer of hot meat. Life is too short to refuse good food. Mama Ru shook her head. She knew that her daughter's obsession would eventually have a price. But like many mothers who love too much, she hoped that this day would never come. What she ignored was that this day was coming, and that everything was going to start with, a corset dress. On a Sunday morning, the sun bathed the city with a soft light, and the church bells resounded in the air like a familiar melody. Nalaya prepared herself with the care of a queen before a coronation. She put on a white molded dress, hung golden loops around her ears, and fixed a sparkling barrette in her carefully curled hair. At every step towards the church, she knew that looks were turning behind her. She loved it. The church was full that morning. The women had taken out their most beautiful fabrics, the men their impeccable shirts. Nalaya walked slowly to her seat, savoring the whispers and admiring looks. But as she settled down, something caught her attention on the other side of the aisle. It was a woman she had never seen before. Tall, graceful, dressed in a yellow corset dress, a gold so beautiful that the world seemed to stop for a second. The corset drew its size with perfect precision. The fabric sparkled in the light of the stained glass windows, and the bottom of the dress spread out in an elegant cascade. Nalaya's heart beat faster. She no longer heard the song of the choir, nor the words of the pastor. She only saw this dress. "I want this," she thought. Not tomorrow, not in a month. She wanted it now. As soon as the worship ended and the pastor said, "Go in the peace of the Lord," Nalaya jumped on her heels and crossed the aisle in one step. "Excuse me," she threw with a radiant smile. "Hello. I couldn't help but admire you. Your dress is sublime. Where did you make it?" The lady laughed gently, flattered. "Oh, thank you. It's my seamstress who made it for me. She specializes in corset dresses." "My God, she's beautiful. How much did it cost you?" Nalaya asked, her eyes shining. The woman hesitated a second before answering. 280,000 naira? Nalaya widened her eyes. "Dear, what? 280,000 naira?" The lady burst into laughter. "Yes, my dear. Quality has a price, but believe me, each kobo was worth it. She took out a small card from her golden pocket and handed it to Nalaya. Here's the number of my seamstress. Her name is Madam Okoye. If you want to shine, she's the best. Nalaya shook the card as if she had just received a magic key. Thank you very much, she said with almost feverish gratitude. When she returned home that day, she did not see the children playing outside, nor the women who sold bathing suits on the street. She had the card in her hand, the dress in her head, and only one goal in her heart: find the money to buy this corset dress. She sat on her bed, fixed the ceiling, and murmured, "Nalaya, you will wear this dress, even if you have to save everything." And so began a new obsession. During the days that followed, Nalaya had only one thought in her head: the golden yellow corset dress. She saw it everywhere. In her dreams, she was walking in a crowd that turned around on her way. In her moments of boredom, she made fashion show videos imagining the corset on her. And every time she looked at Madame Okoye's little card, her heart beat faster. But 283,000 naira? That was a huge sum for Nalaya. She had never spent so much in one go. Yet, the more she thought about it, the more convinced she was. This dress is for me. It was sewn for me, even if I hadn't bought it yet. So, Nalaya made a decision. She reduced all her unnecessary expenses, or at least those that didn't concern food. She stopped buying every little dress online, put aside the money she received from her admirers, and kept every note preciously, like a treasure. Of course, this was not done effortlessly. One evening, when she was about to order a set that she had been coveting for weeks, she slowly put down her phone and murmured, "No, this is not the time. The corset first." And at every sacrifice, she imagined people's eyes when she entered, dressed in her dream dress. A warm and golden afternoon, as she was walking down the street, chewing a skewer of soya, Nalaya heard a familiar voice behind her. "Nalaya, is that you?" She turned around quickly. A young woman with a bright smile was making signs for her from the opposite sidewalk. Nalaya folded her eyes, then her face lit up. "Sina? My God, Sina!" The two friends ran to each other and hugged each other for a long time. They had grown up in the same neighborhood, shared the same school benches, laughed at the same jokes, but Sina had moved away for several years. "Look at you," Nalaya exclaimed, her hands on her shoulders. "You too," replied Sina with a burst of laughter. "Always so beautiful and always with something to eat." Nalaya raised her brooch and responded with a malicious look. "You know me too well." The two young women stood on the sidewalk, catching up with the lost time, laughing out loud. Then Sina took a softer tone, almost solemn. "Nalaya, I have great news." "What is it?" "I'm getting married next month." Nalaya held out a hand to her mouth and almost shouted, "Sina, are you kidding?" "No," said Sina, laughing. "And that's not all. I want you to be part of my bridal train. You know I can't celebrate this day without you." Nalaya did not hesitate a second. "Of course, it will be an honor." A few days later, a delivery man rang at her door. A pretty golden, soft and sparkling fabric was carefully folded into a transparent bag. It was the official fabric of the wedding. Nalaya unfolded it gently and lifted it in front of the light. The fabric shone with 1,000 lights. A slow smile spread over her lips. "This is the perfect opportunity," she murmured. She grabbed the little card she had kept in her drawer, that of Madame Okoye. "Your time has come." The next morning, she went to the sewing workshop located in an animated street where the air smelled of both new fabric and hot wax. Madame Okoye, an elegant woman with a low voice, welcomed her with a professional smile. "My dear, what do you want us to do for you?" "I want a corset dress like the one you made for a lady at the church," Nalaya answered with confidence. The seamstress made her turn slowly, took her measurements with precision, noted each number carefully. "I can already see what you will look like," she said in a calm voice. "Get ready to be the queen of the wedding." Nalaya's heart pounded in her chest. She came out of the workshop as if she had already won an invisible crown. The big day was approaching, and she was going to shine more than the bride herself. The following weeks were for Nalaya the most exciting of her life. She fell asleep imagining the amazed look of the guests on the day of the wedding. She woke up thinking of her corset dress, of the way it would emphasize her waist and turn her head. She had finally paid the full price. Each saved note, each sacrifice had come to this precise moment. One Thursday morning, the phone vibrated on her bedside table. She opened her eyes, still asleep. It was a message. "Hello, Nalaya. Your dress is ready for the first try." "Madam Okoye?" She bounced off the bed like a child at Christmas. A few hours later, she entered the sewing workshop with her heart beating like a drum. Madam Okoye welcomed her with a satisfied smile and waved her hand to a mannequin in the center of the room. On him was hung the golden yellow corset dress. Her dress! The light passed through the windows of the workshop and made each golden thread sparkle. The corset was perfectly sculpted. The fabric matched the shape of the bust as if it had been sewn for a princess. Nalaya stood still for a second, her hand on her chest, mouth wide open. She's murmured. "Sublime," completed Madam Okoye with a proud smile. "Come, try it on." Nalaya entered the cabin, took off her clothes with trembling hands of excitement, and slowly put on the dress. When Madam Okoye tightened the laces of the corset, she felt her stomach compressed, her waist tightened. But for Nalaya, this slight embarrassment was the price of perfection. She placed herself in front of the grand golden mirror. Her reflection caught her breath. "I look like a queen," she sighed. "No, my dear," replied the seamstress. "You are the queen." After a few minor touches, Madam Okoye reassured her. "The big day is coming, and believe me, no one will forget your passage." The days before the wedding were a succession of small pleasures for Nalaya. She bought golden earrings in the shape of leaves, a shiny pochette, and vertiginous heels she proudly called her queen's shoes. She spent hours choosing the right hairstyle, finally decided to opt for large, silky curls falling on her shoulders, like a light cascade. The day before the wedding, Nalaya carefully arranged each accessory in a white box, put it on her dresser, and sat at the edge of her bed, smiling. "Tomorrow I will shine like never before," she whispered. By dawn, the streets were already echoing with songs, clappers, and footsteps. Flower vendors were shouting their prayers, children were running, guests were getting ready. At Nalaya's, everything was silent except her heart, beating with impatience. She spent 3 hours at the hair salon, brushing, putting on makeup, bright powder, bright lipstick. When she put on the corset dress and then Madam Okoye made the final adjustments, she looked in the mirror and had no doubt she was going to steal the star from everyone. When she arrived at the reception room, the guests immediately turned around. An admirable silence floated in the air, followed by wonderful whispers. "Who is this girl? Her dress is incredible. She is more elegant than some brides." Nalaya moved slowly, aware of every look on her. The lights hanging from the ceiling were reflecting on the golden corset, like a polished star. She was smiling, her chin raised, feeling untouchable. Shortly after her arrival, the scent of dishes began to invade the room. Jollof red and smoking, fried rice golden, grilled chicken with spices, crispy samosa, soft cakes, and fresh drinks. Nalaya felt her stomach growl. "It's not because I'm beautiful that I'm going to starve," she thought. She took a plate and served herself generously, then a second, then a third. She swallowed samosa, beignet, spicy meat, vanilla cake, and ended up with a whole bottle of iced soda. An old aunt sitting not far looked at her with concern. "My daughter, be gentle," she said, touching her arm. "This dress is very tight. If you eat too much, you'll regret it." Nalaya burst out laughing and made a gesture with her hand. "Mama, let me enjoy it. It's a wedding, not a prison." She moved away, a new plate in her hand, sparkling eyes, and the corset tightened at the maximum. She still did not know that just a few minutes later, her golden dream would turn into a nightmare in the middle of the party. The DJ started the opening music. The drums vibrated, the trumpets resounded, and the crowd exploded in applause. The procession of the bridal train lined up to accompany Sina, the bride, in a triumphant entrance. The ladies advanced one by one, their wreaths twinkling under the colored spotlights. Nalaya was eagerly finishing her soda when she saw her comrades already on the track. She had a little jolt. "Oh no," she sighed. She put the wreath down, got up quickly, and joined the line. The whole room vibrated. The guests tapped their hands, filmed, shouted, danced. And Nalaya, all in gold, was in the center of attention. She made elegant steps, turned slightly on herself, swinging her hips to the rhythm of the drums. But just a few minutes after starting to dance, she felt a strange pressure in her stomach, a death pain like an invisible hand slowly tightening from the inside. "It's nothing, just a corset too tight," she thought, forcing a smile. She continued to dance, but the pain intensified rapidly. A sprain. Her stomach contracted, her legs became heavy. She tried to catch her breath, but the air seemed to be lacking. Her steps were losing their fluidity, her arms were shaking slightly. A friend behind her noticed her. "Nalaya, are you okay?" she murmured, placing a hand on her shoulder. Nalaya raised her head with a forced look, determined not to waste her moment of glory. But the pain rose suddenly, like a wave. She felt a burn in her throat. Before she could even hold on, she threw up in the middle of the dance floor. The music stopped. A muffled cry was heard in the crowd. Chairs were shaking the floor. All the eyes that a few seconds earlier were admiring her were now frozen on her face, distorted by the pain. Nalaya tried to take a step back, but her legs gave way. She collapsed heavily on the shiny floor of the reception room. The crowd exploded in panic. "Call an ambulance!" She was still breathing. "Take this corset off him." Hands were rushing towards her. An aunt unbuttoned her dress in a hurry to untie the laces. Nalaya's face was pale, her breathing irregular. Guests were shaking as they held their phones. Others were already crying. Sina, the bride, still in white dress, shuddered in the crowd, and tears rolled down her eyes. "Nalaya, Nalaya, open your eyes!" she shouted in a hoarse voice. Ambulances arrived a few minutes later. Nalaya was carried on a chair, her corset half unbuttoned, her makeup dripping on her cheeks. Her mother, Mama Riu, who had just arrived at the party, screamed when she saw her unconscious daughter. "Nalaya, my daughter, wake up!" She clung to the stretcher as she was pushed towards the ambulance. Her hands were shaking, her legs refused to carry her. "It's not possible, not my daughter," she said in tears. The siren resounded in the night like a true alarm. At the hospital, Dr. Pan examined Nalaya urgently. The diagnosis fell like an iceberg. The corset had compressed her intestines, preventing digestion and blocking blood circulation. The huge amount of food had aggravated the situation. Her abdomen was swollen and part of her intestines had begun to break. "We must operate on her immediately," said the doctor in a deep voice. Mama Rio covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. "Lord, protect my daughter." The operation lasted several hours. The white lights in the hospital corridors seemed endless. Members of the family, friends of the wedding, and even Sina were waiting in silence. Around 3 a.m., Dr. Pan finally came out of the operating room, his face tired but relieved. "She is alive!" Mama Rio knelt down in tears of relief. "But," continued the doctor, "she will have to stay hospitalized for a long time. Her body suffered a severe shock. She will have to take care of her diet and her health. Never again such a tight corset. Never again excess." When Nalaya opened her eyes a few days later, she was lying in a hospital room, surrounded by wires and machines that beeped softly. She had a bandaged belly, a dry mouth, and an irritated throat. To her right, Mama Ryu held her hand, her eyes red from crying too much. "Mama," murmured Nalaya in a low voice. "Shh, rest, my daughter," answered her mother by kissing her hand. Nalaya felt a warm tear roll on her cheek. For the first time, she understood that her lightness had almost cost her her life. All these laughs, all these gluttonies, all this obsession to be admired had led to this hospital table. She closed her eyes slowly, a new weight in her chest, not that of a corset this time, but that of reality. That night, Nalaya was no longer the queen of the corset. She was just a girl who had frowned. The weeks passed slowly. Nalaya stayed in the hospital for a long time, each day a little more aware of what she had lost, and above all, of what she had almost lost, her life. The first few days were painful. She had trouble eating. Her swollen belly reminded her of the wedding night at every moment. Mama Ryu never left her. She was there at every awakening, holding her hand, whispering prayers to her. Sometimes she didn't say anything at all. Her eyes spoke for her. They said, "My daughter, I warned you." But also, "Thank God you're still here." One morning, as the sun rose slowly behind the creamy curtains of the room, Nalaya took a deep breath and whispered in a broken voice, "Mama, I'm sorry." Mama Ryu slowly turned her head toward her, her eyes still wet. "Sorry for what, my daughter? For never listening to you. For believing that life was just beautiful dresses and meals at will. I almost lost everything because of my vanity." Her mother tenderly caressed her cheek, as she did when she was little. "What matters is that you understand now. God has given you a second chance, Nalaya. Don't waste it." A tear rolled down Nalaya's cheek, but this time she wasn't scared. It was a tear of lucidity. She knew that after this ordeal, she would never be the same again. The day Nalaya left the hospital, she was no longer the light and carefree young woman who didn't listen to anyone. She walked slowly, a hand on her stomach, still sensitive, but with a new light in her eyes. The corset dress, she had refused to take it back. She had asked Mama Ryu to give it to her as a charity work. This garment that she had desired so much now represented a danger, a reminder of her pride. She also changed her habits. The shawarmas every night disappeared from her routine. She learned to cook balanced meals, to eat slowly, to listen to her body. What used to seem unthinkable to her became her new normality. And above all, Nalaya decided to speak. A few months later, she was invited to a program for young women in her neighborhood. In front of a room full of girls of her age, mixed up, well-dressed, some with the same frivolous sparkle that she used to have, Nalaya took the microphone. Her hands shook at first, but her voice was firm. "I have long believed that beauty protected me from everything, that as long as I was beautiful, thin, admired, I could do what I wanted. I was wrong. One day, wanting to shine too much, I almost turned off my own light." A heavy silence filled the room. She continued, "Pay attention to yourself, to your health, to your heart, to your choices. Do not let an obsession, whatever it is, destroy you. The real beauty is not in a dress, it is in the life you keep." The girls looked at her in silence, some with wet eyes, others with this mixture of respect and shock. That evening, on her way home, Nalaya sat in front of her open window. The nocturnal breeze gently caressed her face. She looked at the sky, the stars that sparkled like the glitter of a dress, but this time she no longer felt the need to possess one. She put her hand on her belly, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. She had learned, in the pain, a truth that no one could take away from her. Beauty only makes sense when it does not cost a life. Nalaya no longer became the queen of the corset. She became the girl who had survived to grow up. The end.